What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to Player Entertainment. My name is Chris, and in case you don't know, I review movies and I rank them on a scale of 0 to 100 in increments of 5. How you doing? I apologize if you can hear the crickets. I live in the forest, pretty much. It's like a forest. I don't live in the woods, but there's trees. Quite a bit of them. So yeah. Anyways, I don't know what that has to do with crickets. But anyway, welcome back to Player Entertainment. So, I was not planning on doing this review. This is very last minute. But I decided to rewatch this movie today, and I thought, hey, you know what? I'm going to be busy all weekend. I'm not going to be reviewing any new releases. Why not do this? So I know that their Prey and Bullet Train are coming out this weekend. I will not be reviewing any of these movies this weekend. I have a lot going on in my life. Things are very hectic. So just bear with me as I try to get this content out. But I figured, you know what? Let's do this one. What the heck? It'll be fun. So, today we are talking about Casablanca. So you can see the little picture right there. Because that's my only copy of Casablanca. It comes with The Wizard of Oz and Gone with the Wind. Which, by the way, both had the same director and came out the same year. But not Casablanca. Casablanca did not. Casablanca. It's Casablanca. Okay, so, Casablanca, the first time I watched this movie, I was a little bit underwhelmed. I liked it, but I was a little underwhelmed. I was like, this is just a bunch of people talking. I like this, but I don't really get it. I watched it again, and I was like, okay, now this is clicking with me more. And after I did some research on like more the technical side of the movie, then I began to appreciate it even more after that. Casablanca is a great movie. It's one of the most iconic movies ever made. It is probably the single greatest piece of propaganda ever made. The whole movie is World War II propaganda. And it's everything about this movie is just so iconic. And it's no wonder we keep talking about it today. It's very easy to look at this movie and just be like, okay, this is boring. It's just a bunch of people talking. I don't like this. But there's a lot underneath when it comes to Casablanca. And I think that's what makes it such a great movie. So let's go ahead and talk about it. This movie, by the way, turns 80 this year. 80! This movie's going to be 80 years old in November. That's crazy. This movie is 80. You know what else is 80? Harrison Ford. Let's get started. So, Casablanca came out in 1942. And it stars Humphrey Bogart, Ingrid Bergman, Paul Henreid, Claude Rains, and Dooley Wilson. It was directed by Michael Curtiz. And this movie takes place in Casablanca, which is in Africa, where there was a bunch of refugees that at time were actually going there in Africa to get away from the Nazis. And this is about a bunch of people who end up coming here, and they all have dreams to get out of Casablanca and get to the United States. And Humphrey Bogart's former lover, played by Ingrid Bergman, she walks into his diner and complicates his life because she had left him, and she needs to get to America, and she is married to a resistance leader. This movie takes place right before the bombing of Pearl Harbor, even though it came out after. It takes place right before the bombing of Pearl Harbor. And he struggles with a moral dilemma. He just keeps claiming, like, you know, I don't really care. I'm just out for myself. But he's a complicated guy because he really does care. And Casablanca is one of the most iconic screenplays ever written. And what's interesting about it is that I read somewhere where this movie was just pretty much part of a quota. At the time, the screenwriters had a script quota they had to meet every year, and this was just another one that they did. Now, it's based on, like, previous material, but they adapted this to help meet their writing quota, but it's one of the best screenplays ever written. It's very interesting, because even when they released this movie, they thought that people would just sort of view it as, like, another run-of-the-mill Hollywood flick, but no, we still talk about it today. I mean, people have talked about Casablanca so much, and I'm just another dude who suddenly just decided to talk about it. There's been so much said about this movie, and I'm just pretty much going to be repeating things that other people have said, but you know what? I like this movie, I love this movie, and I wanted to talk about it. So, let's talk about why I really love Casablanca. So, like I said, it was never meant to be great. but it still is. It's iconic, especially the ending at the airport. The whole thing is iconic. It's one of the greatest pieces of propaganda ever made. Rick essentially represents America's intervention in the war. He's neutral, he's just looking out for himself, but then it gets to the point where he realizes, I can't. I gotta get involved, I gotta do something. He represents America, and that is really fantastic writing. I need you to flip, thank you. Because I'm doing it on this. Let's see. The movie also has one of the most iconic movie romances of all time, and yet the two lovers don't end up together at the end. And I think that that's really bold, especially for the 40s, when, like, before we really had movie tropes, necessarily. They were willing to do that. And it shows that they don't end up together because of a greater cause. And that represents America. Hey, we might have to make some sacrifices along the way during this war effort, but it's all for a greater cause. And this movie is very pro-war. It, like I said, it is a big World War II piece of propaganda, but it's not up in your face. It's not shoved in your face. It's there, and you can definitely see it, but it's not forced onto you. Like, so many movies are terrible with that today when it comes to putting message in the movie. It's so forced and crammed down your throat. This movie and movies like They Live, a John Carpenter film, do that kind of thing perfectly, where it's subtle and it's not forced. The dialogue is fantastic. If this movie didn't have such riveting dialogue, I can see why a lot of people would maybe think it's boring. But the dialogue is just so well written, and it just keeps me engaged throughout the whole movie, and I want to hear what they're saying. And they have quippy one-liners, and it's a very quotable movie. We'll always have Paris. Here's a looking at you, kid. Like, all these great lines, and it's just some of the things that makes this movie so iconic. The Nazis are also a constant source of tension. It's not like... So a lot of this movie takes place in Rick's club that he owns in Casablanca. And the Nazis, they are not just talking about how the Nazis are out there doing these things. The Nazis are always there in this club all the time. And so you're just constantly waiting for the Nazis to start doing evil Nazi things. And so they're this constant source of tension that's always there. Also, I love, probably my favorite scene in this movie is the French national anthem theme. You got the Nazis that are in this club and they're singing some German, type of, national songs. And then Victor Laszlo, who is married to Humphrey Bogart's ex-lover, he's a resistance leader, right? And this is before America entered the war. And so he hears this, and he just gets him mad, and he instructs the band to start playing the French, I believe it's the French national anthem, if I'm not mistaken. It's some sort of French national fight song. I can't remember. It's called La something. I don't know. Forgive my ignorance. But anyway, he instructs them to play the song, and the whole entire diner, or the whole entire club, stands up and starts singing the song in unison, and they're overpowering the Nazis, and it's a great metaphor for the underdogs can rise up and take over. And that's just, it's really, really, that's why this is such great writing. Rick is also a fantastic character. He struggles with a moral dilemma in which he tells himself he doesn't care, but he really does. He really does. And it's like I said, he does represent America and America getting involved in the war. And it's easy to look at Humphrey Bogart and sort of say like he kind of plays himself. But in this movie, he's really good. And you can really, really see that he's struggling with this moral dilemma throughout the movie. He keeps putting on this face like, I don't care, I'm just out to look for myself. But you can see it. It's just seeping through him. He cares. And he's a good person. And the characters around him are telling him this. And he keeps denying it. And he's a complex guy. And that's what makes him so intriguing. Also, from a technical standpoint, this movie is great. The lighting is used to reflect moods and messages. The cinematography is fantastic. The directing here is really, really good. I think that Michael Curtiz did a really underrated job. Nobody really talks about his directing much for this movie, but he did a really good job with it. It moves quicker than most movies at the time, and that's primarily because of the editing. The theme song is really good, and I think this movie got nominated for an Oscar for the music, or it won 3 Oscars, and one of them was for Best Picture. The performances are great. Like I said, Humphrey Bogart is really, really good in this movie. I kept praising the writing. The exposition is handled really, really well. It never feels forcefully explained to the audience. All the exposition in this movie feels like it has a purpose for being said. And there's also a couple of clever moments of humor in this, which I've never seen anyone talk about. Like when Renault is shutting down the club by the order of the Nazi, and he's like, "What are you shutting it down?" Rick is like, "What are you shutting it down for?" He's like, "I had no idea there was gambling going on here." And then the guy walks up to him and he's like, "You're winning, sir." And he's like, "Thank you." Nobody talks about that, but it's really, really clever. Look, Casablanca, if you've never seen it and you're not a film buff, you might not get it, because like I said, you might think it's kind of boring, and I can see to the average person why this would come across as boring. Casablanca is really a movie that if you're into filmmaking, you get it, because you look for the deeper things, but the average casual moviegoer would probably think this is a boring film. And even though I really liked this movie the first time I saw it, I did kind of miss the mark with it, but upon further viewings, I really appreciate this movie. I love Casablanca, and Casablanca absolutely gets a 100. We will be back soon. Like I said, I'm busy, but I'm trying to get more content out, so just bear with me. All right, thank you so much for watching. Subscribe to Polyplay Entertainment for more. Hit the like button. Leave reviews and suggestions down in the comments down below. Follow me on Instagram and TikTok at Polyplay Entertainment for channel updates and other bonus content. And much love.